Hello, I'm Billy Demaree, and today I'm here to visit with you about NWEA's map for the primary grade. Throughout today's chat, I'll be calling the map for the primary grade MPG. And so let's get started. The MPG was designed by NWEA as an efficient way of helping primary teachers gain information about their students in an efficient manner. Uh, Teachers can use this information to determine grouping, some differentiated instruction strategies, designing curriculum, and diagnostic work. There are three assessments in the MPG. There is a screener, there is a skills checklist, and there's a survey with goals. And all three of the tests have a math side and a reading side. And so you'll gain information about those two important subjects. I'm going to talk a little bit first off about similarities of all three assessments and then focus in on the differences of the three and their uses. All three assessments are done on the computer. All three teachers gain reports through the reporting site in the NWEA's MARC. All three system or assessments have what we call a test warm-up to help the kids get used to the assessment system and how to take an assessment on the computer. And all three provide you immediate results. Let's take a look at the three assessments separately. The first assessment we're going to look at is the screening assessment. As I mentioned earlier, there's a math side and a reading side. The math side will give you some information on early numeracy skills, such as counting one-to-one correspondence and being able to recognize numbers. The reading part will give you some early literacy skills, like some concepts of print, some audio discrimination, and some phonological awareness. The screening test is what we call a diagnostic test. It is a mastery. If the students get all the questions right, they're mastered those skills and are ready to move on. And the information that you receive on the screening test is the number right of the questions. And then you also find out what they got right and what they got wrong. So you really have a good idea of what they know. The test can be given throughout the year as many times as the teacher would feel necessary. It could be given to the whole class or individually. You might give this screening test to a student, find out where their strengths are, what areas they need to work on. You could provide the instruction, and then a week or 2 weeks later, give the test again and see where the student has gained those skills. And like I say, it can be given as frequently and whenever you want, and you always get immediate results as soon as a student answers the last question. Let's move on to the next assessment, the skills checklist. There's a reading skills checklist and a math skills checklist. The reading skills checklist contains 10 skills checklists. For instance, beginning blends, the beginning phonological awareness sounds. And so each of the 10 skills checklists has a set of skills in which you're looking at. For instance, the beginning blends. Once a student has taken that test, the teacher will know which blends the student knows, which ones they don't know. They may focus in some instruction on the blends they did not know, give the test another week later or whenever they felt it was needed, and then see what skills the student has mastered. And then they would have a record of it in the reports that they would be able to produce. Like I say, this is a mastery test with the reading and the math. Again, you will get a number right, and with the skills checklist, you'll also get a percentage right. These tests can be given whenever you want, as frequently as you want. The third test, and that's probably the one that's most utilized, is the survey with goals. The survey with goals is in line with the other MAP Survey with Goals tests. The students will be getting a RIT score, and there is a math side and a reading side. The difference between the Survey with Goals and the screener and the skills checklist is that this is a instructional level test. It's an adaptive test, and it will provide that information of where you want to start the instruction for the student. You'll get normative data on the Survey of Goals test. That way we can compare our students from throughout the school and throughout the nation with their percentile score, that normative data. The Survey of Goals test is typically given in line with the rest of the schools or districts' MAP assessments during those assessment windows. And so most schools would do it 3 times a year: fall, winter, spring. You'd have the option of fall and winter or fall and spring. And then you'd have that 4th option in the summer quarter if you would have enough instructional days for that week, for that period. The reports that the Survey of Goals provides is the same reports that the other grades would be getting, the 2 to 5 and the 6+ reports. So you get a class report, student progress report, ASG growth report, and the student's data is calculated inside all of the district and school data reports. And so that would be your 3rd report. The advantage of each of these assessments is kind of separate. One of the advantages I mentioned earlier is the efficiency of it. It's done on the computer. You get immediate results, no double checking and calculating the scores. It's all done automatically for you. There's 2 types of students that these reports fit together and can really make a difference for. One of those students is that student that we think about most frequently is that student who is really struggling. Because for the student that have many needs and may not come to the school as prepared as some kids do, that student we're able to first off focus in on what the student's skills set is and find out what that student knows. Then we can teach them in separate areas, like I said earlier, beginning blends. We can teach him the blends he does not know. Then we can run the assessment again, and then we can find out what the student has learned in between time. Maybe they've mastered all of them, so that would mean we can move on. The second student that sometimes we forget that this is really a very important assessment for is a student that comes to school already knowing how to read. That lucky student who has the ability and has had the background and opportunities to read and have a very rich language. That student sometimes comes to school with so many skills already, but sometimes our system just kind of locks them into the system, and sometimes we are reluctant to move that student ahead at a faster pace because we're wanting to make certain that the student has the skills before we move them on. We don't want a student to fail. We know that can be damaging. For that student, we can give the skills checklist and we can find out if the student has mastered the individual skills. And often for those students that are very high flyers, they may have mastered all of them, but maybe have 1 or 2 that they don't have. Again, the teacher can quickly instruct those skills, give the assessment again a week later or whatever their time frame would be, and then they would have the confidence that the student now knows the skills so they can move them on. Now, I've mentioned the 2 students on the extreme end. That student has the most need, that student who is really the high flyer. Those students can really benefit from the skills checklist and the screening test, but all those students in between can also for somewhat the same reasons. Resource teachers like both all 3 tests very much because again it can point to the individual skills a student needs to be worked on. That's the skills checklist. It can show growth over time through the increase of the students' RIT scores in the Survey of Goals. The survey of goals test fits into all the other grades map system, so the parents understand what the RIT score is and they can track that RIT growth throughout the student's history at that school or school district. Immediate results, helping provide teachers with data, record keeping, very important. Teachers find these tests very valuable to find out where the student is at, bringing resources to a student when they have extra needs, because they have good documentation abilities to document the student's needs and maybe document either accelerated growth for that high flyer and move them on to other programs, or document a lack of growth, a very slow growth, and again being able to maybe bring on other resources. So NWEA's map for the primary grade, MPG. Remember that and keep on just thinking about all the data that we can provide from the 3 assessments: screening, skills checklist, and survey of goals. Thank you, and have a good day, and have a good assessing, and have a good school year. Adios.